Then there's dorms like Mack Hall, Canfield, Baker, and those have been around probably since the 70s or 80s. And they're definitely a little older, haven't been renovated really, don't have AC, so.
They say college is the best 4 years of your life. And where you live and who you live with is a big part of what makes it so great. I'm Laura. I talk with students across the country about their college living experiences, the good, the bad, and the memorable, so you can learn from them and truly make these your best 4. This episode is brought to you by Rambler, a student apartment located in North Campus across the street from The Ohio State University. Rambler offers spacious floor plans ranging from studios to 6 bedrooms, perfect if you want to live with all of your friends or if you just want to live alone. Plus, their amenities are designed specifically for the Ohio State student, including not 1, but 2 heated pools, a state-of-the-art fitness center, a dedicated study floor, so you don't have to fight for a spot in Thompson, and my personal favorite, Daydreamer, an on-site coffee shop so you can walk downstairs for your morning coffee. I highly recommend checking out their website, ramblercolumbus.com. They have so many great resources for anything that you need to know about student housing. Plus, you can get your application fee waived by using the code BEST4. Again, your application fee waived by using the code BEST4. That's BESTFOUR. Today, I'm here with Brenna.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Brenna.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
And we are in Columbus
Yes.
at The Ohio State University.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. And so thank you so much for being here today.
Of course,
I'm so excited to dive in about housing at Ohio State and your experience the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
'Cause
definitely.
You're a senior, right?
Yep, excited to talk about my experience. It's been a great almost 4 years here, and yes, sadly a senior. Never want to leave. It's the best school ever, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about my student life experience.
Awesome. So you are originally from Buffalo, New
Yes,
York,
I'm
right?
from Buffalo. Yeah.
How did you decide to go to OSU?
I decided to go to OSU because being from New York, there aren't a ton of big school options. You have schools like Syracuse and NYU, but I really wanted something that was outside of New York. I wanted to try something different. So I decided to apply to pretty much all the Big Ten schools. And I went on a few tours. And as soon as I came to Columbus and saw Ohio State, I just fell in love with the campus and knew that I needed to be here.
What did
So
you like the most about campus?
I loved how it was right by a city, but also still had a campus feel. Like it still feels like a college town when you're on campus and even on High Street, but you can also go to the Short North and downtown Columbus, and there's just so much to do. So I love having the two options when I'm at school.
Yeah,
So.
and you mentioned that quite a few people go from Buffalo to Ohio State, right?
Yeah, it's actually a very popular, a lot of people from my hometown have come to Ohio in general for school. And just from my high school alone, there was 8 people that came to Ohio State.
Wow.
So it's surprisingly popular to go out of state when you're from New York.
Yeah. So what was your experience like coming from out of state in terms of finding housing your freshman year? Did you have any advice?
Yeah, I knew from people that went to my high school that went to Ohio State, they kind of gave me some advice coming into the process. But when I first applied to Ohio State and then got accepted and then submitted my deposit to come here, I then learned about all the options that I had. And one of the things that was suggested to me was Facebook groups.
Okay.
So I decided to post on the Facebook groups, and it was just like incoming class of 2025. And a bunch of different incoming freshmen would post on those Facebook groups. And through that, I was able to meet different people through social media and just getting people's numbers. And I just started talking to different people and then narrowing down my options and just kind of picking almost randomly, but knowing someone just from social media. So that's kind of how I did it.
And that's how you found your freshman year roommate, right?
Yep,
Through
I ended
Facebook?
up commenting on one of her posts, and we talked over iMessage for about 2 weeks, and then we just decided that we would be a good match, so we roomed together.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about how you get housing as a freshman at Ohio State, because it's a bit different than other schools, right? You're kind of assigned a dorm.
Yep. So at every school, it's going to look a little different. But at Ohio State, once you submit your deposit, you'll get a form for housing. And that is where you get to see the different rates of housing and also the sides of campus. So there's rate 1 and 2 for both North, South, and West campus.
Okay.
And you get to choose your top 3. So what I ended up doing was putting South Campus rate 1 first, and then South Campus rate 2 second, and then North Campus rate 1 third. So that's how I ended up preferencing.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the differences in like North Campus, South Campus, West Campus in terms of like living and culture and schools and all of that?
Definitely. Each side of campus kind of has a different feel. North Campus, I would say, is mostly academic buildings and the newer dorms, and a lot of that tends to be sophomores. And then South Campus is more just of the older dorms. There are a few new ones, but mostly older ones, and then a few academic buildings, but not as much as North Campus. And then West Campus is where the RPAC is, which is our gym, and then the athletic fields, and then just 2 dorms over there. So it's a little bit smaller.
Okay, so would you say like maybe more studious in like the North, and then like a little bit more of like fun in the South part of campus, and then is West like athletes, I guess?
Yeah, a lot of, I guess, people that maybe want to be closer to the athletic facilities would preference West first, but most students that I know preferenced either North or South first, depending on what they wanted. But yes, you're right. Definitely North Campus, some people just want to be closer to their classes, while South Campus, I'd say there's more of like a community feel, and because there's not really a ton of academic buildings over there, so you just have pretty much dorms surrounding you. So yeah, definitely a more fun vibe, I guess.
Yeah. And so you put South rate 1, South rate 2.
Yes.
And then North.
Yeah.
And you ended up getting South.
Ended up getting South.
At Park-Stradley.
I was at Park-Stradley. I got really lucky. It was a great freshman year dorm. And yeah, just putting South first, my intention was just I wanted to have that community feel and be around other freshmen, just because sometimes I've heard from other people's experiences being on North Campus, they're surrounded by more sophomores, and sometimes those sophomores already have their friend group set. I mean, not in every case scenario, but on South, everybody is a freshman and just looking to meet friends. So I feel like going into it, I knew it'd be a little bit easier to make friends on South.
Yeah, awesome. So tell me about your experience living at Park-Stradley.
Yeah, it was amazing. I got really lucky with my roommate, and then also the people on my floor. As soon as I moved in that first day, my roommate and I decided that we were going to leave our door open because we just wanted to get to know everybody on the floor as soon as we could. So as people would move in, we just like pop our head out in the hallway and introduce ourselves, and we actually ended up meeting our best friends that way, just the first week of school. So we formed a friend group, and then we just would meet other people too, and it was just a great experience. I loved living in Park-Stradley.
I feel like that's like a like classic, like, I don't know, sitcom, like college camp, like just walking in and popping your head open, and then you become like best friends.
Yep.
So I love that.
It felt like that. It definitely doesn't happen that way always, but I feel really lucky that I was best friends with my freshman year roommate and the people on our floor.
So I'm curious, how did you find your roommate first and then you got placed, or did you get placed and find your roommate? How did that order work?
Yeah, so once I found my roommate, you get to preference on your housing form, like who you want to room with. So there's either doubles or quads. Okay. That's how it usually works. And I just, from people giving me different suggestions, figured out that I think a double would be best for me. So I just had one roommate, and we ended up grouping together, and then we did each rate the same. So we preferenced the same top 3. So that's how we did it.
Is a quad, are there any bunk beds? Or
Yes, there are bunk beds in the quads. And some people don't mind that because they have the bunk bed room, and then they have a separate room where their desks and dressers are. But I just felt like it'd be better having just one other person in the room, but it's totally up to the preference of whoever is doing it. So
let's go back to your experience at Park-Stradley.
Yeah, so Park-Stradley, I lived on floor 5, and how it was set up is when you get off the elevators, there was a side for girls and then the guy side, so it was separated like that. So I just had like girls surrounding me, but I was all the way to the end, and I was really good friends with my next door neighbors, and then I also made a friend with a girl down the hall, and then we were friends with some of the guys on our side. So we had a bunch of different friends on our floor, and it was great because we were living right next to each other, so we could hang out literally at any hour of the day and go in the study lounge and hang out together there. And yeah, it was just really nice being that close to them.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned before that there were other dorms like in South Campus. What are some of the other ones? I think like Siebert.
Yep, there's Siebert, there's Smith-Steve, Canfield, Mac Hall. Those are all pretty much in the surrounding area.
Would you say those are all like good dorms like up there? How would you rank them? Like
so-
top versus maybe like
Yeah,
top?
there's definitely differences with
Yeah.
the dorms on South Campus, and that's why a lot of people don't end up putting South first, because they're a little bit nervous to get one of the dorms that is a little bit older.
Okay.
But I'd say Smith, Steve, Park-Stradley, and Siebert are all the newest South Campus dorms. Those are the ones that you want to be in.
Yeah.
But then there's dorms like Mack Hall, Canfield, Baker, and those have been around probably since the 70s or 80s, and they're definitely a little older, haven't been renovated really, don't have AC. So some
I
people
wanted to talk to you about that.
yeah,
No AC at all.
no AC, which is crazy.
Okay.
That
Not even like a little window unit.
no,
Nothing.
no,
Okay.
nothing. So
How hot does it get in Columbus?
it gets pretty warm, and we have pretty warm falls, honestly. Like
Okay.
last week, for example, it was 100 degrees like every single day.
Really?
So I'm not really sure how any of those people slept, being in the 100-degree heat, trying to like go to bed. But
Do you know
it does
anybody
get hot.
that's lived in those dorms? Like,
I
who's
do.
that? Okay.
Yep. Some girls in my sorority, I've heard some of their experiences living in those dorms. And I actually know one girl that lived in Mack Hall, and she said she would stay in the library till like 11 or 12 at night just to like be out of the heat, and then she'd go back to her room and try to fall asleep.
my gosh.
Just like watching TV in the library just because she wanted to be in air conditioning.
Wow.
So, and that's
Okay.
extreme cases. I mean, it doesn't stay 100 all year. It's just the first few weeks of
but
school, but it's definitely
Still rough.
It's still a little rough at the beginning,
Yeah.
like the first 2 months, I'd say.
And so would you say that some people though would probably prefer to live in an older dorm? Like,
Well, everyone that lives in the older dorms is a freshman. So even though they don't have AC, some people would prefer that over being on North just for the community aspect and being around other freshmen. Because again, on North, you're probably going to be around more sophomores than freshmen. So
Yeah.
some people would rather have that.
yeah.
So
And you're in the business school, right?
I am in the business school.
Okay. And where are those classes mostly located?
So those classes are all on North Campus.
Okay.
But when you come to Ohio State as a business student, your freshman year, you probably won't even be at the business campus at all.
Yeah.
All your classes are going to kind of be spread out on like the South Oval and then the main oval, just because you're taking general education courses. So that wasn't really a concern of mine. Even if I would have had something at Fisher, it would have only been like a 20-minute walk, which is not too bad.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Cool. So, would you recommend a freshman living south?
Yes,
their freshman
100%. It's so much fun. And not only the dorm, but there's also something called Siebert Lawn, which when the
Okay.
weather is nice out, it's in the middle between Park-Stradley and Siebert. It's like a huge lawn, and everybody's just outside hanging out, playing spike ball, like in a hammock. It's just so much fun. And
Yeah.
just because of like that whole aspect, I would say even risking you not getting AC might be worth putting South before North, in my opinion. So,
Awesome. So you had a
yeah.
good experience.
Yeah.
Living there your freshman year. Then your sophomore year, you went to your sorority house, right?
yes. So I ended up rushing a sorority my second semester, my freshman year, and I had the option of living in my sorority house, and just being all the sorority houses are in a really good location on Ohio State's campus. So I just decided that would be the best option for me. So I ended up going with that my sophomore year.
And you're required to live in the house, so too,
Yes. In my sorority, you are required to live in the house,
Mm-hmm.
but different sororities operate differently, and some don't require you. But
Yeah.
in Kappa, you are required to live in. So,
And it's your sophomore year.
yep, your sophomore year.
And
you
they
live in the
usually
house.
have enough spots.
Usually. But it depends, because Ohio State has admitted a lot of students. So more students are going through the recruitment process now. But the year that I rushed and got into Kappa, there was exactly enough people in my PC to fill the house. So we filled every single spot. But in recent years, there's been more people that are in each PC. So it's growing, and there's sometimes not enough spots to fill in the house. But it ends up working out because some girls want to live in a dorm. So, but.
And where are the Greek houses? Like, where is Greek Row?
So there's North Campus and South Campus, and right in the middle, I would call it just like Central Campus, and they're right across High Street in like the Central Campus area. My sorority house was on 15th, right near High Street, so it was a great location.
Yeah. What was it like going from south to central?
It's definitely different. You don't have like all the dorms around you, and you're not like, you feel like you're in an apartment in a dorm, and then going to my sorority house, it just felt more like a home, like how I like grew up in Buffalo, just in a house. Like it felt a little bit more similar to like that experience, I'd say.
And how many girls live in the Kappa house?
60 girls live in the Kappa
60.
house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so how many roommates did you have in your room?
I just had one
You just had
roommate.
one.
Yep.
you
So I
went
was in
from
a
one to
double.
one. But then you had a lot more people. Like, what was the difference between going from a dorm to a sorority house?
Yeah. So in your dorm, obviously you're not going to know every single person that lives there. That's just the way it works. But in your sorority house, like you end up knowing every single person that is in your house. And it's really fun because you have constantly people to hang out with, and just having like the living room down there, like on the first floor, it's nice just to be able to like go watch movies and hang out there, because in your dorm, you don't really have an area where you can really relax other than your room.
Yeah.
You have the study lounges, but it's like people are in there all the time. So it's just more of a different vibe, I'd say, than living in a dorm.
So sophomores are required to live in the dorms, right? Their second year.
Ohio State has a 2-year living on campus requirement.
But is living in the sorority house, like, because you lived there your sophomore year, right?
Yeah.
So how did that work?
Yep. So I lived there my sophomore year, and Ohio State considers Greek housing to be on campus, even though it's not actually on Ohio State's campus. It's considered to be on campus housing. So you don't have to get any sort of exemption for living in your sorority or fraternity house.
Cool. What are some exemptions that one could have if they didn't want to live on campus?
Yeah, there's a ton of different things I've heard, but the most common one I think people do is they go to their doctor and get a note, and it's usually for anxiety. They say that it's like the environment of being in the dorm is like anxiety producing, so they'll get a doctor's note and do that.
Are there any like reasons, like legit exemptions, I guess? Like, of course, anxiety is real, and there are people that do have anxiety, but it kind of sounds like it is a way to get out of it at times. So
definitely can be abused a little bit.
What
like
are
that.
some like real exemptions?
Real exemptions I've heard would probably be just money reasons. I'd say like if you could get an exemption if you were commuting, like if you lived around the Columbus area, you could get an exemption that way. And possibly even if you didn't live here, you could say for money reasons, but they've cracked down on exemptions ever since. I think during COVID, they were a little more lenient with people getting those doctor notes and living off campus, but now it's gotten kind of more strict, but with them admitting all these students, who knows where that will go.
Okay, so going back to the sorority house, is Greek life super popular at Ohio State?
It's definitely popular, but I'd say I know some schools, like Southern schools, you have the stereotype, oh, you need to be in a sorority or fraternity to have a social life. And at Ohio State, that's not the case at all. You can be in one. You don't have to be in one. We have so many different orgs you can be in on campus that you can have so much fun in. And so if you're not in a sorority or fraternity, not a big deal. Like, but it's a fun thing to do. Like, I enjoy it, but not something that's necessary at all. So,
what was your experience like living in your sorority house?
It was awesome. I loved the location. I loved my house. It was just so fun living with my entire PC and really getting to know like all 60 girls, because I feel like with having such big pledge classes, it can be hard to really like get to know everyone, but living in the house helps, just getting to like eat meals with people and just study with everyone. And I really enjoyed my time living with all those girls.
Did you have meals provided in the sorority house?
Yep. So we had a chef, so we didn't have to do the on-campus meal plan. We ended up just eating in our house, so that was also really convenient living there and also like having all of our meals there. So
what is like the on-campus meal plan like?
So there's different offers for everyone. There's a meal plan that's 10 swipes, there's one that's 14, and then there's an unlimited plan.
And that's a week.
And that's once a week. Yep. Yeah. Those get refreshed every week. And then also that there's some meal plans that have dining dollars and Buck ID cash, which dining dollars you can use on campus. So you can use that at any of the dining halls, but then Buck ID cash is more for off campus, like the restaurants on High Street.
And so you had that one, you had the 10.
I had the 10. Yeah.
Did you feel like that was enough as a freshman?
I thought it was plenty. I know like a lot of my friends did. It's called the gray 10. I did the gray 10, and sometimes I wouldn't even get through the 10 swipes.
Yeah.
But it's nice because Ohio State has an option where you can donate swipes. So like at the end of the week, I would donate them. But yeah, honestly, I think the 10 is enough. But some guys I know did like the unlimited plan. So it just depends like how much you think you're going to eat, I guess.
For sure. I'm curious because you guys are required to live your sophomore year. do other sororities have like a point system, or how do they determine who lives in the house?
Yeah. So every sorority, most sororities do have a point system. Kappa does not, just because everyone can live in the house, and you know that kind of going in with like in recruitment, we tell you that. But other sororities, once you're in, there's only sometimes like 40 to 45 spots in some of these houses, and the PCs are 60 to 70 girls.
Yeah.
So they want to try to get people to come to events throughout the year when they first join to gain points in order to live in the house. So each sorority kind of does it differently, but some you have to get points in order to like qualify for even living in the house.
Cool. Yeah. I feel like that's like what I've mostly heard is the point system.
Yeah, it's super common.
And then your junior year, you moved into a house.
Yep. I decided that I wanted to do an off-campus house. Just because my friends from freshman year, we had always talked about it, wanting to live in a house together. And there's so many great apartments around, but I knew that I just wanted to try the house. So yeah, I ended up deciding to do a house.
And it's technically, is it an annex?
So it's not technically an annex, but Kappa does have like annexes, even though when people think of annex, they think it's managed by the sorority or fraternity, but really like the term annex is usually just like everyone in the same sorority or fraternity living in a house together, and it gets passed down. Has nothing to do with like the sorority actually managing
and
it.
That's why it's called an annex.
That's why it's called an annex. Yep.
So tell me your experience about getting that house though.
Yeah.
It was a process.
It's a process. I don't know how other schools work, but Ohio State, it's very competitive to get a house just because there's not very many houses that in general, and then the spots that you want to be in, you have to sign a lease like your first week, your sophomore year, to get a house like that's in a good spot. So after the first day of school.
Wait, you said your first week, your sophomore year.
Yep, that's when I signed my lease for my junior year. Was my first week sophomore year.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. So you got to get on it right when you get back. You got to get on it right away. And people go about this in all different ways. Like if you have a connection, you can reach out to like people you know that aren't re-signing or junior or senior and ask like, do you know anybody with a house that they're not re-signing? So I did that, but also the best way is just to go around the neighborhood and knock on doors and just see if they're re-signing. So it's kind of competitive, honestly.
And that's what you did.
And that's what I did. I reached out to some people and had a few options, but
what were the names of the properties you were saying that own the houses?
So the off-campus houses are owned by mostly just a few landlords. Like it's crazy. Like it's kind of like a monopoly. Like they have a ton of houses. It's like Home Teams, Buckeye Real Estate, In Town, Nicastro. Those are just some of North Step. That's also a big one. So there's a few landlords that control, like have most of the houses. Yeah. But I recommend if you can find a landlord that only has like 5 to 10 properties around here, it's usually better just because they're more responsive.
Seems like a lot though.
It definitely still is. Like my landlord only owns like I think 7 or 8 houses, but it's better because they're more responsive with your requests, with maintenance.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, so did you call the landlords first before you started knocking on doors?
No, and I know people definitely go that route where they look on the websites and they're like, oh, okay, like I see that there's an 8 bedroom for this or 9. Yeah. They have their group of people and they see the bedrooms. But I think the best way to go about it is just knocking, because the landlords sometimes don't even know if the girls are re-signing because they give them about 2 weeks usually to do it. So it's best just to go right to the people and ask, are you going to re-sign? And then from there, have them give you their landlord's email and then reach out to the landlord once you know.
So where are the annexes located?
So the annex for my sorority is located on 16th Avenue.
Okay. Where is that?
It's
like north, south?
It's right in Central Campus, I'd say. Yeah. I'd call Central Campus anywhere from like 15th Avenue to 17th. Like in those few streets is like Central. Anything above that, north, south, below, I'd consider.
Okay. So your annex, your Kappa annex.
The Kappa annex is on 16th Central Campus.
And then are there annexes in north, south, central? Are they all over the place? Are they
all over the place?
Okay,
yep.
cool.
And they just look like normal houses for all the sororities. There's just different. Some sororities have 1 to 2, some have like 3 or 4. It really just depends. But Kappa really just has our one annex, I'd say.
Yeah. So tell me about your story, about how you got your annex.
Yeah. So basically, my friend and I just decided to go knocking on doors. So we went on North Campus just because that was the area we wanted to be in. And
You said North?
North Campus.
Okay,
Yeah. We
so
wanted
you
to be on North.
switched it up.
Yeah. I wanted to switch it up from, because I've lived on South Central and I'm like, I want to be North
Okay.
my junior
Do
and
you
senior
like
year.
it?
I love it. Yeah.
More than South?
I think it's nice when you're off campus to be North because that's where most of the upperclassmen live.
Okay.
I feel like in general. So I do like it. And now all of my classes are at Fisher. So I only have a 10-minute walk to class.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to
Success.
interrupt you. Let's go back to your story. How did you get your house?
So my friend and I went knocking on doors, and one of the houses that we knocked on ended up being a girl that answered, ended up being a girl in my sorority. And I didn't even know that she lived in that house.
Wow.
And it was the right amount of bedrooms that we needed. It was 8. So we went in and toured, and they were still unsure if they were going to resign at the time. So we kind of put that house in the back of our head. We were like,
Yeah.
this is a good option. There's good rooms in the house. They're all pretty equally sized, but there was 2 basement rooms. So that was another thing we needed to consider. So
Yeah.
kind of put that in the back of our minds and kept searching. But yeah, we ended up going back once we figured out that they weren't resigning, and we signed the house.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
That worked out perfectly.
Yeah, it worked out really well because we ended up knowing some of the girls that lived there because it was a few girls in my sorority,
Yeah.
and they were able to tell the landlord like, oh, like these girls are interested in the house,
Yeah.
like we know them, they're in our sorority.
Yeah.
So it worked out really well.
Yeah. And I've heard before that unless there is some crazy drama, most people will re-sign if they're living in an annex. Is that true?
Definitely. I would say most of the time people just are sick of moving after 3 moves. You just kind of want to be settled in your house for junior and senior year. So as long as there's no drama, people will resign. So
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about the basement rooms a little bit. Would you say that that's pretty common with the annexes?
definitely. Just
Or
in
houses in general?
Houses in general off campus a lot of times have basement rooms, and we're really lucky in my house. The basement rooms are actually pretty nice. Like they do have the smaller window, which some people don't like, and just being in the basement, but they are big rooms. Like they're pretty nice for basement rooms, but I've definitely seen some basement rooms that are rough.
Yeah.
Just rough, just basement feel. But
And so would you say it's crucial to communicate with your roommates about the basement rooms?
definitely, I think in the housing search process, it's really important to know everybody's preferences. And if you do find a house with the right amount of bedrooms, they're not resigning, and there's basement rooms, like you all need to be okay with having one of those rooms, because if that kind of gets miscommunicated and you end up signing the lease and then someone gets a basement room and they don't want it, it can definitely lead to drama. So I would recommend communicating that.
Yeah.
Having 8 roommates, it's really important to know what everyone wants, their budget, how they live. Just everything is really important, knowing the people well.
So do you like living in your house right now?
I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
All my roommates and I are very close, and it's just a great mix of people. Just having some of my really good friends from freshman year and then having some girls in my sorority. It's just nice. Like I'm always doing things with them. So it's a lot of fun.
I'm just curious because you've never lived in an apartment.
No.
Why not? Why houses like dorm sorority house?
Yeah. I think what attracted me to a house was just having the porch and being able to have, I guess, more space like that, just outdoor space. And also just sometimes there's just more flexibility with a house and you don't have to pay extra for parking and little things like that. Just being able to if you want to have a party, you don't have to worry about the noise with your neighbors. And
Right.
it just depends, but I get why people do apartments. It's definitely something I considered, especially with for security reasons. It's really nice and having a fully furnished place and having all of that, because with a house you need to get all your furniture and set that all up. So
That's true. Did anyone bring any furniture with them, or did y'all have to furnish it all?
yeah, so the girls that had the house before us ended up selling us the couch that was in the family room, which was super nice because our family room is actually pretty big and the couch was a sectional, fit it perfectly. So we just bought that from them. And then everybody kind of just chipped in and brought their own stuff. Someone brought a chair, someone brought the table, kitchen utensils. Everybody just kind of chipped in, and whatever we didn't have, we just split the cost of.
What was the design process like with that many girls?
We were just like, okay, we want a bar cart, we want some posters. Like, we didn't really have any specific like design in mind.
Yeah.
We just saw like, okay, like I have this piece of furniture, I have this, like, okay, like this goes together. And then we just kind of like, we have all of my roommates were pretty much all from out of state except one of us out of the 8, so we all have like our states on the wall.
Cute.
And like just pictures of us and different like inspirational posters. So no really design, just like stuff that we thought was cute. So, and it came together nicely.
Yeah. So you've had a good experience, obviously, because you re-signed to live your senior year. But that's also common.
Yeah, very common. I don't really know many people that didn't re-sign their house because, like you said, only if there's like some crazy drama that happens, people want to get out of it.
So I wanted to talk to you about annex nepotism.
Yeah. I know, it's definitely a thing from hearing from friends about their experiences. I know that sometimes, like, if you're in a sorority fraternity, you have, you know, you're big, you're little, you have like a family in your sorority. And sometimes when you're big or your grand big lives in an annex and you're moving from your sorority or fraternity house into one of those annexes, sometimes even the rooms, like if your big has the room, like you get first preference for that room. So it gets interesting. Picking bedrooms with annexes.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have first priority just because of their family in the sorority fraternity.
That's hilarious.
It's interesting.
Really funny.
Yeah.
So we talked about you having basement rooms. In your house, do the people that live in the basement, do they pay less? Like, how is it like split in the house?
Yep. In my house, they do pay less. Yeah. We price the rooms based on size, and the basement, they pay less just in general. And then some of my rooms in my house are a little bit bigger, so those girls pay a little more, and then some of us pay a little less that live in smaller
rooms. How many bathrooms
rooms.
do you have?
We have 3 bathrooms.
3 bathrooms for 8 people. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. And one of the bathrooms is like pretty big, has 2 sinks. And
so how many like girls do you normally share like your bathroom with?
So I share with 4 girls, but I'm on the 2nd floor, and there's 4 rooms on the 2nd floor, so we all use that bathroom with the 2 sinks, and honestly there's never been any issues. Like, it's big enough.
And then there's another one, I'm assuming, on the top floor.
On the top floor there's another one.
There's 2
of them, but actually the bathroom is in one of the girls' rooms. But it worked out because the one girl that's in the room with the bathroom inside of it, she's like a very heavy sleeper, so if like the other girl needs to go in and use like night or morning, it's not an issue at all. So there's that. And then in the basement we have another bathroom where 2 of those girls share.
Yeah, interesting. Do you guys split the utilities like equally still?
Split the utilities equally, Wi-Fi, all that type of stuff. Split.
And how much would you say utilities cost living in a house?
It really depends on the month.
Yeah.
Because in the summer, our electric bill has been pretty high. Like, our electric and gas have been the higher ones.
Okay.
But then in the winter, they're not as
ballpark,
bad.
like, what are you?
Ballpark, like this month for electric, I paid $50, so around $50. So it can get,
so that's 50 times 8.
yeah, it's definitely a lot. And I think it's because of how old these houses are. The systems are definitely not efficient. Like, our AC is definitely like the top floors definitely are way warmer than our basement. Like, and I think it's because it's just such an old system.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of way it goes. But
so you would say, like, in the summer months, like budgeting about like $50 probably if you're in a house.
Yeah, I'd say about 50
house.
if you're in a bigger house too. Like, our house is pretty big.
Yeah.
So.
And what about like in the winter? Probably a little less.
Yeah, definitely a little less in the winter. I'd say like 20 to 30.
Okay.
Ish.
Did you have to pay utilities in your sorority house?
No, everything was
included.
Meals,
yeah,
room, everything was included in there.
Did you end up paying more or less living in the sorority house than like the dorm versus like the house? I guess kind of like
the comparison of what those look like. The dorms are definitely the most expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, so that includes like your room, your food, that's all in one price with the dorms.
Yeah.
And then when you live in like a sorority house, sometimes you can opt out of like the meals, but in my house, again, required to like eat there too. And that was less than the dorms. The price probably like $2,000 to $3,000 less, so not like a huge difference.
Per
but
semester?
or
per year?
Per year.
Okay.
Yeah, per year. And then in my house, it's way less just because like, I'm buying my own groceries now, and my rent's like $715 a month. So it's really not too bad. There's definitely houses I know that are way less than that, some that are more. It just kind of depends on your house, your landlord, where you are. So.
And those are like newer houses, the ones that are more expensive probably?
Yeah.
Or,
like I know some people that pay like anywhere from like 800, 850. Those are probably like the newer, nicer houses. And then my house, I'd say it's pretty nice, but it's definitely an older house. It's around 700 region. And then I've even heard some people paying in like the 500 range, but you're going to be farther from campus if you're in one of those houses.
And then if you choose to live in an apartment, do you know anybody that lives in like an apartment?
Yeah, I do know.
Like, where does that fall in terms of like price?
So with an apartment, I'd say the apartments around here are pretty nice, and you're going to be paying a premium just because a lot of them are like right on High Street or by campus, depending.
Would you say High Street is like the place that you kind of want to be?
I'd say High Street and Lane are like the two areas, because those are the ones that like surround Ohio State's campus. So that's where you want to be. That's where most people are. That price point probably is more similar to like the sorority house. I'd say like monthly they're going to be paying anywhere from like $1,200 to like $1,800 even. Like in the apartment prices are definitely going up. So
and you said the sorority was cheaper than the dorms. So dorms are like very expensive.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Ballpark, I probably paid for the year like $13,000 to $14,000 dollars in total.
But you did rate 1, right?
Yes, I did rate 1, so I was in a more expensive dorm. But if you end up prepping rate 2, then it will be less.
Be a little bit less. So that's kind of like a good hack.
Yeah, it's a good option if people don't want to like if they don't want to be in rate 1, then you can do rate 2.
Is there anything that you think you would have done differently in terms of where you lived?
Yeah, I think the one thing about my house now that I live in that I would have preferred was being closer to High Street. I think that's something I like took for granted, like when I lived in the dorm in the sorority house, just because I was like way closer to campus. Now even just getting to campus is a solid like 10-minute walk usually. So maybe wish I would have been closer to High Street, but honestly I wouldn't change a thing. Like I love my house and I love the people I live with, so the walk really isn't too bad.
Do you think it's harder to get a house closer to High Street? It's more competitive.
It's more competitive to be on like 17th, 18th, Woodruff. Like when it's like Waldeck, Indianola, Summit. Anything Indianola to High Street is way more competitive. If you're past Indianola, it gets like a little bit less competitive as you pass.
Yeah.
So.
And then is there any advice that you would give to incoming freshmen?
I would say I'm just so happy that I did this when I moved in. I kept my door open the first week, and I feel like that's really how I like made a lot of my friends, was just like putting myself out there, and like when someone was moving in, going out, introducing myself. And I think that's really important, because you have to keep in mind like everybody's new, everybody wants to make friends, so don't feel like nervous to do that. Like leave your door open and be like, oh, I don't know them, but it's important just to put yourself out there and just make new friends, because everyone wants to make friends. So.
And you would recommend living south too?
Yes, I would recommend living south. I know people that did live north and still loved it. Everyone's experience is different, but I'm really happy that I was on South Campus.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and talking all about your experience living at Ohio State.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had such a great time on the podcast.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening, y'all. If you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us out a lot. For more info and to learn about our partners, visit thebest4pod.com. Make sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at thebest4pod. We'll see you next time.